Okay, great. I'm Sue Theiss, and my major role at EMV is to work on the NEPA assignment program. And as Carlos said, we've been working on it for, well, it's been about 1.5 years now. We've been working on the full NEPA assignment program with the CE also. So the CE MOU, it actually started in February. We became under full NEPA assignment on the 12th, and we have approved almost 1,100 CEs already in the first 6 months of the program. So that's quite a feat, 1,100 in 6 months. The CE MOU is what tells us exactly what we can and what we should not be doing. Actually tells us what we have to do to stay in the program. And it includes monitoring and performance measures, things like making sure that the department has enough money for the program, has enough qualified staff for the program, that the staff is trained and certified and knows all the rules and things like that. So as Carlos said, we had our first program review in June, and it was quite intensive effort. Program review can also be termed audit if that makes more sense to you. And it actually kind of felt more like an audit. Federal Highways actually brought 10 people in from either the Texas Division or DC or the Resource Center, and to perform the audit. We started out in Austin on Monday and moved from the Austin, the Environmental Affairs Division. We went to the Austin District, and they went to the Houston District and went to Dallas District on Tuesday and Wednesday. And then on Wednesday, they did telephone interviews with San Angelo and Waco and San Antonio. Thank you. That's what I get for having it behind me and not in front of me, right? I wasn't expecting this. So, and you think, oh, they're going to come in, they'll ask you a few questions, it'll go over pretty quickly. Well, the effort to get ready for it it was like 3 months of just getting ready for the audit, because arrangements with everybody coming in, well, we need rooms, we need computers, we need to make sure people aren't on vacations or holidays. So it was quite an intensive effort just to get ready for the event. And so then the event happened. It was a week-long event, and it was quite busy and hectic. By Friday, we were all just exhausted. Friday afternoon, we all sat around a conference table, and we had a phoning capability for the districts that were involved so they could listen to the results. And we had preliminary results from Federal Highways that told us how things were going. After that, they provided us a draft report and then a final report. The final report was required to be done within 30 days of the actual audit, and we got it in, well, it was 30 or something days, and we got it in August. So, summary of what came out in the final audit report. We have 7 best practices, 2 observations, and 6 findings. And the overall summary is that we're in substantial compliance of the MOU, which is absolutely fabulous. So what a best practice is something that Federal Highways was either doing interviews with staff, or they were looking at ECOS, our program files, project files. They're looking at our program, and they identified things that they thought was a really good thing that we ought to maybe actually make it a statewide practice. They just thought it was a really good practice, so that was kind of like a kudos section of the report. And then we had 2 observations, and the observations are not negative. They're just saying, hey, you might want to look into this because this could be a problem down the road. And then 6 findings. And 6 findings are actually based upon some kind of a rule, regulation, or MOU that is, the practice that we're doing is perhaps not consistent with what we're supposed to be doing. So just a note, so I was told I had to prepare a report to go back to Federal Highways, a corrective actions report within 30 days of receiving our final report. And so I asked them, well, do you have a go-by? Because it's always nice to not start from scratch with these things. And this was our first one. So they actually sent me one. They sent me one from Alaska. So I was kind of leafing through the one from Alaska. And it turns out, Alaska, we're only 4 states that are under CE assignment right now. And we are the 4th, and we are the youngest or newbie in the program. And I was looking at the Alaska report, and they went through the same audit program review that we did within the first 6 months of their program, and they had 38 audit findings. So we had 6, and they had 38. So I was like, yay, raw, we did great. We did 6. And the thing is, with those 6, we actually knew before we even got the report what those 6 were going to be. We really had a handle on what was going well with the program and what we already identified needed to be fixed, so none of them were surprises, which was fabulous. So some of the best practices that were identified: number 1, they identified Carrie's group, the self-assessment branch. They just thought that they were doing a fabulous job of looking at our program, looking at our projects, looking at our staffing, having her group identify, you know, what's going well, what needs to be improved, where we made a little whoops and where we can fix it. They thought that program was just fabulous, and that was listed in there. There's an environmental certification process that anybody that touches environmental documents has to be certified, so they liked our certification process and our program that's in place. They actually gave kudos to the Dallas district twice. They got kudos on their audit file checklist and their review before going through PS&E, which is what Dan told us about a few minutes ago. So they came up twice in the kudos here that they're doing a fabulous job with those activities. They talked about Brian Ellis. Brian has been our go-to person for rural districts, and he goes to and does workshops and training for the rural districts, and they thought that the process that Brian was doing with the rural districts was fabulous. We started environmental resource sharing back, it's been about 3 or 4 years ago, when we were doing the region stuff, and we were telling Federal Highways during our interviews, during the audit, that if we have districts that don't have the expertise that, say, a certain district needs, say for mussels or for noise or for wetlands or some special flower or whatever it is, that we can always get people from across the state to help out. So they thought that was beneficial to the program. And the last one is batching projects, and that would be where you've got a bunch of seal coats, and instead of doing, 1,500 seal coats for your, you can do them in, 1 or 2. So say you've got 50 seal coat projects that are letting at a certain time, and you want to batch them into one document. So instead of doing 50 documents, you could do 1 of them, and they like that process. So observations, as I said, these are just issues that they brought up that they thought we ought to look at. They're not necessarily findings, they're just things to look at. And one of them was ECOS, which is our environmental tracking database system, and they thought it could use a couple of improvements. And they also had some issues with some of our signatory ideas. Some people didn't exactly understand who was needing to sign things, where they were needing to sign things, and they thought those things needed to be cleared up a little bit. So on the findings, and there were only 6, and as I said, we pretty much knew what they were going to be before the actual report came out. And in fact, some of the findings, we actually already had fixed them and already fixed the problem before we even had the audit in June. So they were already done. So there's some errors with reporting on the CE list. Every month we have to send a monthly list of the CEs that have been approved to Federal Highways, and we had some state-listed projects on the federal project list. So it's like, whoops, okay, well, we need to figure out when we actually do the database dump, how is that doing? So we're fixing that. We have some policy and procedure things, incomplete documentation. They just like to have, like we've said before, if it's not written down and it's not in your file, then we have no documentation, to show it's done. I came from the Houston district, and I was there for several years, and we had maybe a couple of lawsuits there, which we won, thank you very much, but we had a couple of them. And in NEPA, you have administrative law. You're under administrative law. And so what you have, you don't put witnesses on the stand, and you don't have all that stuff. You have a project file, and if you can't show in your project file what you did and how you made your decision, basically it wasn't done. So you have to be able to show, it's show and tell. I show you what you did, and you can tell your decision. So Federal Highways was thinking we didn't have complete enough project description. Say for the C-22s, where it's you can use a C-22 for projects within the existing right-of-way. They wanted more description of why you're in existing right-of-way. It wasn't just enough to say, oh, we're within existing right-of-way. They wanted more description on why you were in existing right-of-way. So we're working on teaching staff on what kind of sentences to put in your documentation to show that you're within existing right-of-way. The other thing that we identified early on, our original form, our CE determination form, it didn't have all the right signature things. It didn't have lines for signatures and dates, and well, it had dates, but it didn't have a printed name and titles. And we're required to have your signature, your printed name, your title, and your dates. And the first form we rolled out, actually, bad on us, we didn't have it. So we rolled out a second form in May that has all the required stuff. So that was one of the findings. It's something we already corrected back in May, and it was done. So like I said, 30 days after we got our report, we had to turn in a corrective action plan, which was pretty simple to do since we only had 6 findings to address, and we'd actually already addressed a lot of those things anyway, so we got it done. And as I've already told you, we developed a new CE form. We've got some new QA/QC policies in place. We're providing a little more training, and we're going to address all these things pretty quickly. Some of them have already been done. So in conclusion, because I know everybody's just dying, I'm the last person, in the last session, in the last day, and you all are hungry and tired, and you're like ready to go home. Here's my conclusion. We are now in the 9th month of the program, and the CE program is going very, very well. Part of the CE, or the corrective action program, is to make monthly phone calls with the districts. So we've been calling and saying, hey, we've been looking at your projects, and these are things that are going well, this we think we could fix, and whatever, and these are things we see that are wrong that definitely need to be fixed. So we've been doing that, and we have noticed that things are just getting smoother and better as we go along. People are understanding, they're figuring out how to do this. ECOS is working better. People are understanding the program better. We can use our online tools, our handbooks, and the information is provided. So things are going really well. So we're in our 9th month of the program. And like I said, we've approved over 1,100 CEs just in the first 6 months of the program. So that's just a phenomenal number, more than many states could do in multi-years. Texas has already done it in 6 months. I do want to say that our relationship with Federal Highways is phenomenal. We have been learning now that we're getting into full NEPA assignment, we've been having more discussions with other states because other states are interested in the program that we're fixing to enter, and so people are watching, what is Texas doing? And so we've been having conversations, and we found out that a lot of states have really bad relationships with Federal Highways. It's just not good at all. And so we are extremely, extremely fortunate to have really good partners at Federal Highways that, they're free to come and make, meetings and discussions and phone calls, pick up the phone, hey, what do you think of this? What do you think of that? They're very supportive of our CE program and the full assignment program. We've been meeting with them on a bi-weekly basis for months, months and months and months. And all the problems, anything that comes up, everything's getting worked out very well. And I'm just very thankful that we have a good relationship with Federal Highways, and because it just makes life so much easier when you can work with your partners and everybody appreciates everybody else's work. So I guess that's about it. We had a successful program for the full NEPA assignment. As Carlos said, we will be doing our next 2 years, just so you know, it's going to be audit, 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 and audit, and audit, because we have to do a full audit. And when I was talking to Mike Leary with Federal Highways, he said, yeah, we're going to be bringing more people in for the audit because, it's an audit. It's just not a program review. And I looked at him and I said, you brought 10 people over for the program review. You're going to bring more people over? So he's expecting to bring more people over for the full audit. Well, we have to do an audit every 6 months for the first 2 years of the program. So considering how the CE program review went, it's like 2 or 3 months of prep. You go through your audit, 2 or 3 months of downloading, doing reports, and then you're starting all over with getting ready for the next one, going through it, downloading, getting ready for the next one. So we are going to be in your faces and on conference calls and emails and in your ears a lot for the next 2 years to get through this whole audit process. But we thank you for your participation and your cooperation, and I'm going to turn it over to Carlos.